So next up is saving in Excel 2010. And this is a very important step because after you've created all that data in your spreadsheet, well, you're going to want to make sure you can save it, right? So we're going to talk about the different steps that are needed to save your document, and then the different file types that are associated, whether you want to save it in Excel 2003 format, 2010, some of the different file types available. So we're going to cover all that fun stuff in this video. So get ready. Now, let's talk about the basics between the basic save options you have. And you really have two, okay? There's a save and then there's a save as. So what's the difference? Well, anytime you save your document for the first time, right? So maybe you put your data in there and you're going to save it for the first time, you're always going to have to do what's called a save as, even if I click save. So where do you find these options first of all? Well, they're going to be on your File tab, and you'll see the first two right here. Okay, so Save, Save As, and again, no matter even if I click Save, it's still going to actually perform a Save As. So this isn't actually the first time I've saved this spreadsheet, but let's go ahead and click on Save As, and let's take a look. This opens up to your Save As window. Now the difference between Save As versus Save is you have the option to change three things in Save As. Okay, the first is the name, and that's down here. So you give it a name, you can call it whatever you want, as long as it doesn't have any funky characters, like slashes, dashes, or anything like that in it. It's got to be pretty straightforward, but otherwise you can type whatever you like. The second thing you can change is the location, and that's going to be indicated up here by all these folders and arrows. That tells you where you are, and you can also navigate through the different folders and areas on the left. So that's where you can specify where this file is going. And the last thing you can change in Save As is the type of the file. Okay, and what I mean by that is, well, is it a 2003 Excel file? Is it a 2010 Excel file? Is it a PDF? Is it a web page? So you can change this file type here, and if I click on that, you can see there's a lot of different options that we can choose from. I think most commonly the ones that you'll probably be working with are the Excel 2010, perhaps the 2003 version. PDF is also commonly used. What's nice about PDF is it's a read-only file, so if you were to send this spreadsheet to somebody in a PDF, they'd be able to read it, but they wouldn't be able to go in there and change any of the attributes or things like that. So there's all sorts of ones. We're just going to keep it to our Excel workbook, which is the 2010 file, compatible with the 2007 version too. Both of those versions are they run on the same platform, whereas the 2003 ran on an earlier version, and some of the features didn't quite carry over 100%. So we're going to stick with Excel workbook. I like the name, so I'm going to keep it as it is, and I'll hit save. Okay, it's going to ask me, well, do you want to replace it? And yeah, of course I do, so I'll hit yes here. Alright, and it's saved. So now that I've done the initial save, which again, also known as a save as in this case, all I need to do is, as long as I want to keep the name the same, the location the same, and the type the same, I just need to do a save from now on. And that can be found on your quick access toolbar, you remember that? Or your file tab, right there it is. Or if you like keyboard shortcuts, you can hold down the control key and tap the S button. That will save it as well. One thing you don't have to worry too much about in Excel 2010 is the constant necessity of saving over and over and over, just in case you're worried about losing your data, because that's largely avoided with what's called autosave in Excel. So I'll show you how to check that out. That's turned on by default, but you may want to change the time interval. So instead of having the program save it every 10 minutes, maybe you don't trust yourself or the system quite as much, you can knock it down to maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes. It's going to be in your file tab. You go down to options here, right? It's going to bring up your options window. We're going to go over to the save area, and on the right here is your auto recover information every 10 minutes. So that's what I was talking about. It's defaulted to every 10 minutes, and I can knock this down to maybe 5 minutes, okay? And then from here on out, every 5 minutes, it will automatically save this document to the same location with the same name as the same file type. Okay, so that's a nice kind of safety net feature. Outside of that, there's a couple other things you could do in this File tab. So if you go back to File here with me, let's take a look at some of those things. If I go down to my Save and Send area, there's a couple different options. I can send this using an email, and this is connected to your default email client, so it might be Outlook, it might be Gmail, whatever email program you have. You can save it to the web if you have some internet web space set up. You can save it to SharePoint if you have a SharePoint site. You can also change the file type with this shortcut here, or you could simply create that PDF shortcut right by hitting this button right here. So there's a lot of options here. For the most part, we're just going to be concerned with save and save as. I'd say all these other features won't quite be as used as much as the save or save as. I want to talk about one other thing here before we wrap up, and if we go back to our Info tab. Now, there's a lot of concern with people who are going from an older version of Excel to a newer version of Excel because they're based on slightly different standards, and I would say maybe 90% you'll probably be okay. There is that 10% where things won't transfer over completely, and I want to talk about how we can mitigate that as best as possible with this feature called the compatibility checker, and that's going to be built into this check for issues button. So if you look at this last item in that list, check compatibility, this will go through your spreadsheet that you've been working on, and it's going to check for any potential conflict areas or compatibility issues between the 2003 version with the 2010 version. Okay, so let's just see if this finds anything on my worksheet. I'm not sure it will, but I'll click on that, and okay, so I'm good to go with this one. And I'm pretty sure that's because I was saving in the 2010 format. So I'll hit OK here. I'm going to see real quick if I do a save as. I'm going to change this file type to 2003. I'll hit save. Now if I were to go back to file, I'm going to go to my info and I'll click on check for issues. There's my check compatibility. If I click on that, let's see if anything comes up. No, okay, so I'm good to go. If there were issues, they would come up in this white area where it says no compatibility issues were found, and then it would be up to you to go through there and address any of those specific points. Okay, so no need to worry too much. Always a good idea to run that compatibility checker if you're going from one version to the next, or if you're sending it to somebody and you're not sure which version they have, you can check to make sure it's going to run fine regardless of the version.